It's Impolite Company. This is your host, Chris here. Before we play the standard commercial that's here every episode for Anchor.fm, I did want to give a shout out to another longtime sponsor and friend of the show. If you're in the St. Louis area, check out the Crow's Nest Bar over in Maplewood, 7336 Manchester Road. They are open for carry-out service. If you go on their website, eatcrowstl.com, they have the menu there. You call, you place your order. 15, 20 minutes later, show up, they come out to the curb, they put it in your car, you pay them. It's capitalism at its best in the middle of a global pandemic. They've been closed for a while, fixing up the inside, getting a patio ready for when they're ready to let people sit on it. But for now, show them some love. They've supported us from the beginning, and they've listened to me tell a lot of stupid fucking jokes in the front of their bar. So check them out, find out what everyone is complaining about, show them some love today. Peace out. Now, here comes, the stupid commercial I do every... Have you ever thought you could host a podcast? Well, you're right. Do it on Anchor. Here, bye.
The day the donuts disappeared from the quick trip, I knew we were in trouble. A fearless misfit tried to warn you. When you were trying to be cool, no lying, just defying all society's rules. God, politics, drugs, sex, and yes, y'all, TED Talks from Jesus. You worship Les Paul, or maybe it's Prince. Ever since I got a new religion, I'm not so damn consumed with consumerism. Ain't it time we examine the facts, man? I stay sharp like the claws on Hugh Jackman, they real. And I feel like a fucking hero. Duking her trunk, but don't touch De Niro. Living on the edge, taking acid at a kid's party. Sweating bullets full of caffeine, that shit's hardly a day's work. And I'm talking my shit, cause I used to have it worse than Oliver Twist, dick pics, and John Wayne stories, man. My aura is your mom bumping Sepultura. No quarter, tweeting at the end of the world, telling street jokes. The illest motherfucker that you ever could meet, folks. How do I sleep at night? Comfortably. Hope you're in the mood for some Impolite Company.
Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim chiree. A kook is as lucky can be. Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim chaq. Good luck will rub off when you shake hands with Q. Or blow them a kiss, regardless of if they want you to. That's Mary Poppins. But also, that was CPAC. That's how I felt watching CPAC all weekend. Recording this right after CPAC. Ooh, CPAC. That's all I gotta say. Man, you want an alternate reality. I watched 3 days of it. It was 4 days. I could only watch 3 days. And there was some stuff. It was like, I've been to conventions. I've been to comic book conventions, man. I've been to comic book, fantasy, and science fiction conventions. I have seen people dress in nothing but a thong and their body painted with mauve glitter. And I didn't know you could buy mauve-colored glitter until I started going to those things. But they make it, and it sticks mostly to your body. It actually leaves a trail of everywhere you walk through a 5-hotel convention center in downtown Atlanta. Like, if your friend dresses as someone that wears just a thong and mauve-colored body glitter, you're not going to lose that person. If kidnappers abduct your friend from downtown Atlanta while they're covered in mauve-colored glitter, congratulations, your friend is no longer kidnapped. You're going to find them. It's going to be great. You round up your team, find whoever cosplayed as the Scooby-Doo gang. Hopefully they brought a van. If they didn't, find whoever cosplayed as Speed Racer. They probably brought a Mach 5. If they didn't, find whoever cosplayed as the Ghostbusters. They probably brought a Echo 1 with them. If they didn't, find out whoever cosplayed Marty McFly and Doc Brown. They brought a DeLorean. The point is, there are a lot of people there with costumed vehicles and a team who can help you, like in a high-speed chase. You just get them to pull up, jump in with them. Hopefully you have a costume that fits their team. If not, just pretend you're the guest star on their show that week. And they got to give you a ride. But you can follow that trail of glitter through Atlanta, through the drive-thru at Crystal, maybe to the walk-up window at Varsity. I wonder if that still exists during pandemic. I don't know. There's like places you can go in Atlanta to find your friend, and the glitter will be there, and that'll lead you to them. Like, they'll probably call you going, we have your friend, and you can't have them back. You'll already be at their front door. You'll be like, yeah, man, I know you have my friend. There's, like, glitter everywhere. You should have kidnapped someone easier, right? Like, you should have kidnapped somebody in, like, a costume that was just one piece and not, like, a million small particles glued to their body. Same thing goes if your friend's cosplaying a giant chicken and glued feathers to their body. You're going to find feathers. These are real costumes that I've had to clean up in my hotel room from people. I don't wear costumes when I go to those things. Not because I'm better or because I think I'm cooler. Mostly because I'm lazy. Costumes involve work, man. I used to just put on cargo pants, a black t-shirt, a vest, and spike my hair and call it a costume. Because for a while, it was. That's all it took to pretend you were living in a post-apocalyptic world. But then we actually started living in a post-apocalyptic world, and none of that other stuff was necessary. So I just go as myself. I wear the clothes I would wear if I wasn't at the science fiction convention, which apparently that's what they do at CPAC too. Like, costume-wise, it's boring. It's the same ill-fitting suit for dudes, and the same like ugly red dress or saw like clearance rack at Sears and Roebuck circa 1972 dress for chicks. Sometimes if you're like trying out to be an anchor on one of the conservative news networks, for guys it's a slightly better ill-fitting suit, but also a lot of product in your hair. And not like product in your hair like I put a lot of product in my hair, but it's to make it look messy and muss it up, to make it look like I don't care about my hair, right? But the conservative people auditioning for anchor roles on conservative news, they put a lot of product in their hair, but then they like part it really hard, like to make it, give it like a plastic kind of Ken doll look. Or if you're Matt Gaetz, to make it look like your hair is running from your mouth because even it can't believe the shit that you're spewing. Like, that's a very specific look for the dudes. If you're one of the chicks trying out for an anchor position with one of the conservative news networks, you wear an ugly green dress or an ugly blue dress, but you make sure it's got a slit down the middle so you can prove you have a nice firm set of tits. And like, they better be firm. Like, don't have like bras that give you extra architecture, because if there's one thing Newsmax doesn't want is for when you are asked to take off your bra in that interview process for your tits to start drooping then, because they're not going to hire you. Because conservatives know that only women with naturally, not natural like you haven't had breast augmentation, they are pro breast augmentation, but naturally like not supported by any garment, firm breasts with nipples that poke up, and also get your nipples bleached. I know it shouldn't care because that it shouldn't matter because you're presenting the news, quote unquote, to people. But they want to know that you have pink gumdrop nipples, not brown kind of like, I don't know, pebble nipples. I like all nipples. Don't hate at me because I'm shaming you for your nipples. I love whatever your nipples look like, I am pro your nipples. Fucking play with them, bite them, pull them off, put a clamp on them, feed your baby, whatever you got to do with your nipples, that's fine to me. I love your tits are great. But if you want to present news to the conservative, quote unquote, conservative nation, you better have some pink gumdrop nipples. So get whatever surgery that's required to do that. But then you also got to make sure that your dress doesn't go too far below the knee, right? Because when you sit down at the news desk, you got to be able to cross your legs and show that you got nice, firm legs. Don't wear hose. Not like don't wear a hoe, but don't wear like pantyhose or anything. You got to shave your legs, get them conditioned, get them moisturized. Because when people watch conservative news, they need to know that when you cross your legs, they might get a money shot. They don't know what you're wearing under there. Are they plain white cotton panties? Are they black lace panties? Or are you going like full commando and they're going to see all the way to Nebraska the first time you cross your legs? That's what conservatives want in their news. So some people are dressed like that. And I know I'm using very gender exclusive language, right? Like I'm saying dudes and chicks. It's because it's CPAC, man. If you're there and you're non-binary, why? Why are you there? Because they're not recognizing you as a person. I do. You could be a dude with tits and good nipples. You could be a chick with a great looking penis. You could be a non-binary, non-gendered person who still has awesome versions of whatever genitalia you like to play with. That is, or if you don't like to play with it, you want someone else to play with. That is, fuck, in my world, you're God right there. Like you got all the options. You go with them. But at CPAC, it's dudes and chicks, man. Boy, what an alternate world they live in, though. I watched most of the presentations that I could on those 3 days. Right, I even watched the breakout sessions. Still not as good as a science fiction convention. Like when I go to breakout sessions at Dragon Con, for instance, in Atlanta, which I was talking about, we talk about things like in the Stargate universe, what would it mean politically to have so many teams going out to these planets spread throughout the galaxy? Like, how do you manage that without compromising the civil liberties of whoever you're using to colonize various places? Because they did set up a couple colonies, which would be like last chance for the human race should the Earth be destroyed. Like, what do you do there? Is it only American politics? It wasn't until like season 7 or something crazy. Really, not till you saw Atlantis, where it became an international effort to run the Stargate program. Like, they did a good job eventually in that show of pointing out, oh, maybe the U.S. shouldn't be the only one allowed to go to other planets just because the gate was buried here. So that's what, but that's the kind of stuff you spoke. I know that's boring if you don't like Stargate, but I'm just giving you an example. That's the kind of stuff they speak about in breakout sessions at Dragon Con. At CPAC, the breakout session is, hey man, how cool was Reagan? Yeah, I'm not. I've only celebrated the death of a few people. Ronald Reagan was definitely one. And I know some of you puckered up. You're like, oh, but Reagan was a great communicator. Fuck Reagan. Seriously. Don't tell me I have to have sympathy over his death and suffering. Don't tell me, oh, it was a blow to his family. Every death is a blow to somebody's family. And the deaths from AIDS in the 80s because Reagan couldn't recognize it as a legitimate disease everybody needed to worry about instead of just God's revenge on gays for homosexuality and ass fucking. Fuck Reagan. I hope he's burning in hell right now. Speaking of burning in hell, though, that was one good thing about CPAC is I constantly got a reminder that our good friend Rush Limbaugh died. And it's the same thing. Don't tell me I have to be sympathetic about Rush dying. I don't give a fuck about Rush dying like in any way other than it's a reason to maybe have a drink for the first time in a couple of years, like hoist a glass and praise the gods. That man no longer walks among us. Oh, but Chris, he had cancer. Your grandma died of cancer. Shouldn't you have some sympathy for him? Fuck no. My grandma died of cancer in poverty, like without the access to all the treatments that kept Rush Limbaugh alive for another year after his cancer developed. So I don't think I'm required to compare the two cases, but even if I was, just because he shared the death method, not really a method, my grandma didn't say, oh, I'm going out. Method's great. I don't know, cancer. That's not how it works. You get it. But just because he shared that characteristic with the old lady, doesn't mean anything else. The world is less for the lack of her presence, and the world is more for the lack of his presence. So yeah, I'm going to celebrate his death. I hope he's fucking burning in hell next to Reagan. I didn't get the news the way I wanted to. That was kind of a bummer. I wanted to wake up at the crack of dawn. I wanted to wander to my front door through the house blue with the light from outside. You know that dawn light where everything's blue. It's that nice hazy shade of that gray, comforting, cool, just soft on your eyes, pre-sunrise blue. And you open the door, and maybe there'd be snow on the ground still. And the world would be silent. That silent kind of snow just fell, so it absorbs all of the sound waves from anything loud and jarring. So it's like everything's a muted whisper. Maybe there's a bird chirping as he like is hoping to find some kind of food in the snow. The clickety clack of squirrels running across the roof as I open my door to get away from me. I could hear the slow panting of my dog next to me going, are we really going outside in this bullshit? And I look down and go, you don't have to, man, but I gotta get the paper. It's down there at the bottom of the stairs. So I wander out Tony Soprano style, house coat open, boxers on display to the world, wife beater barely covering my man tits. And I walk down the steps to the bottom and I look there on the sidewalk, my dog standing next to me, because in this fantasy he's perfectly trained and doesn't just run down the street like a little asshole who wants to smell every tree, acorn, and front door between here and Illinois. He's standing next to me, and I bend over and I pick up off the ground that clear plastic polyvinyl bag with the folded up Wall Street Journal in it, or the New York Times, or in this case, maybe even the Post-Dispatch. Let's pretend, if I'm gonna live in a fantasy, let's pretend I live in a fantasy where I get the print version of the Post-Dispatch for some reason. And I take it and I look at, I can kind of see the headline, the way it's folded. You know, I tap it on my side of my thigh and I let the snow just shuffle off of the plastic bag. And I can see some of the letters, but I can't make out the headline. So I shrug. I look around at the world a little bit. Maybe I've got a cup of coffee in my hand. Let's be honest, I probably have a cup of coffee in my hand. I take a sip. I walk back in. The Sopranos theme song is probably playing in my head, if not actually over the sky itself. Who is that? Alabama 6? Something like that. It's a state and a number, right? And I walk up. It's weird that a southern state's name is in the band that plays the theme song for a show that takes place in New Jersey. That's interesting. But I walk back to the house. The dog by my side runs in. He's like, fuck, it's cold, man. Gets in before I do. I don't know how he opened the storm door to get in the house before I do. Fantasies don't work like that. They don't give you all the details. It's a step in one direction is 10 feet in the other sometimes. Space and time don't matter in a fantasy. But now I'm in the house. I'm at my dining room table. I turn a lamp on, so I don't wake up the whole house, but I have enough light to see by. The blue light in the window is slowly turning into the whites of daylight. The blend of that white and orange and yellow coming in, casting shadows through the curtains that play on the wall in front of me. I sip my coffee. I sit down at the table. I pull that newspaper out of that plastic bag. I look at the plastic bag, not sure what to do with it. I don't just want to wad it up and put it on the dining room table next to me because that just ruins the aesthetic of the situation. And I like my moments to have aesthetics, right? I like that the beginning of the morning has kind of an organized chaos to it, that kind of disheveledness that comes with being in a house robe in your boxers, but sitting at a table where the picture could be on Instagram. So instead of leaving that plastic polyvinyl bag on the table, I wad it up. I put it in the pocket of my house coat. I know I'm going to forget about it. I know that bag's going to be there tomorrow. How I wanted to learn this information is I wanted to open that newspaper after I took it out of that plastic bag, and I wanted to see that headline slowly unfold in front of me. 36-point Times New Roman print. I don't know if that's the font the Wall Street Journal uses. I'm guessing it's the font the New York Times uses. It's Times New Roman. That seems like they should use it. It seems like it was made for them. I'm probably wrong about that. That is probably an association I created in my head that isn't real. Who knows? Definitely, it would be in giant print if it was the Post-Dispatch, because, it's almost local news. But across that in 36-point type, or whatever the size type, they put the big headlines. The big headlines. Man lands on Mars. Obama wins the presidency. Trump dies. Well, that would have been bigger news, I guess. So I'm glad it wasn't that. But there's the headline and a picture of the man looking better than he ever looked in life. Like, it's definitely doctored. It's a publicity photo that was shipped out 4 months ago when they expected him to die. A year and a month ago when they expected this man to die. But there it is in the paper in front of me. Rush Limbaugh, dead. And in my fantasy, I would set that paper down. I would take a sip of my coffee and I would just smile and revel in a world without the presence of one of the most toxic people to ever walk in it. That's not how I found out. I found out in my car while getting a sandwich. And it was still good. I'm not going to lie. It was still just as good. It didn't have the cinematic quality. It didn't have the made for HBO prestige television show feel to it. It didn't have any of that. But I still smiled. And some people are like, "Oh, Chris, it's ghoulish. It's ghoulish to cheer on the fact that this man died." It is okay to cheer when horrible people die. There is nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you have to wish for their deaths. I have. Often. There are people who wish for my death, I'm sure. More power to them. You're allowed to wish for people to die because wishes don't do anything. Newsflash. Wishes, prayers, thoughts, they're all the same thing. None of them do anything. So wish people dead as much as you want. When they die, you're still not responsible. And we live in a world where attention is currency, where care is currency, where compassion and empathy are currency. And we're spending it willy-nilly everywhere for some reason. Instead of concentrating it where it matters. Like any good economic or physical resource, you want to effectively use what's at your disposal. I only have so much care and empathy. I'm not wasting them on Rush Limbaugh. But Chris, you could not be sad that he's dead and also not celebrate his death. I could. Maybe if I was a better person. That was probably harsh. Nah, not really. I don't know. It was fun. I was getting a sandwich and they announced it. A friend of mine texted me going, "Hey, Rush Limbaugh's wife is on his show announcing that he died." I was like, "Oh, fuck, I got to tune in." And I missed it. I missed the announcement, which would have felt better. But I missed that. By the time I tuned in, it was all just best of clips of shit he had said over the years. That's depressing. Like, I didn't listen too long to that. I think when I tuned in, he was talking about Michelle Bachmann right back after she got elected and how she was definitely a true conservative who needed to be held up. And I was like, "Oh, man, thanks for the reminder. Rush was a fucking lunatic." Old Papa Pill Popper himself. It's so good. I have a complicated relationship with Rush Limbaugh. In high school, I was one of the terrible teenage boys who liked him, who read his book, The Way Things Ought to Be. I spent afternoons, many an afternoon, in a math teacher's classroom eating my lunch while he listened to Rush Limbaugh on the radio. And it was high school. It's that age where you're dumb enough to think Ayn Rand has a point, right? Like, you read all this stuff and you're dumb enough to believe this shit about Reagan being a great unifier and all that dumb bullshit. I was lucky enough to be able to go to college before they let conservatives set up think tanks across all the campuses across the country. So when I went to college, I got to learn about actual facts that disputed things Rush Limbaugh said, or I got to meet people who were different that Limbaugh regularly shit on the air. So it was nice to grow out of that, but it was sad to see that he never went away. And he gave birth to even new, younger, more extreme versions of him. Without Limbaugh, you didn't get Beck. You didn't get Tucker Carlson. Mark Levine would just be some old whiny guy with a voice you'd never want to hear. You ever wonder, one of our big criticisms of female politicians or female commentators that you hear when they raise their voice or when they get angry or show emotion is how shrill their voice is, how ear-piercing their cackles are. And then you hear Mark Levine. And Mark Levine's voice, man, there are times when, for one, he yells in an empty studio for no reason. Just top of his lungs, like vein bulging on his forehead. But he yells in this voice that occasionally makes my dog put his paws over his ears, because it's just in that register. Like, no matter what you thought of Hillary Clinton, if you were one of the people who constantly complained about the sound of her voice, how did you also go listen to Mark Levine? Maybe it didn't have anything to do with the voice. I don't want to just like do 45 minutes of telling Rush to burn in hell. So I'm gonna finish drinking my coffee. Then I'm gonna turn this back on, and I'll come back. You're gonna hear a click. That click is me drinking coffee. Like, hardly any time's gonna pass for you, but it's gonna be some time for me while I reset. All right, we're back. More cheerful topics. The things that I was originally going to talk about this week is a thought I had the other day about being the first to try something, right? And I was thinking about this because I was cooking dinner. I was making sausages, and it got me thinking about hot dogs and how gross hot dogs are, like, when you think about what's in them, but how good they taste. And I thought about, like, just the cliche, the trope, the standard joke you hear from people is like, who was the first person to eat a hot dog? Like, who was the first person to look at all these scraps of meat that were disgusting, and then look at an intestine, which is disgusting, and say, oh, I should put all this together? Like, who made the first sausage and then decided, well, and that evolved down to a hot dog, and it's like, let's eat it. And, you know, it was all out of necessity, right? Like, it wasn't like there was some nobleman somewhere who was like, oh, I need a new delicacy. Bring me your rarest cuts of meat. Grind them and put them in the rarest casing made from the intestine of thine swine, or however they talk. It was poor people who had to use everything they had. And there's not a good way to use a lot of the stuff that was left over, right? You can only make so many soups and stews, and really a stew made out of the organ meat from a pig isn't that great, so you grind it up into a pulp. You need to put it in something edible. You know you can eat intestine. People do it. You stuff it with some peppers and some rice. You can do that. Why not stuff it with more meat? And then you cook it and you eat it and you live your life, right? Rich people look at it and go, oh, that's gross. And you're like, well, whatever, it helps me live. And then one day a rich person in Brooklyn's like, oh, that's pretty cool, actually. I'm going to take it, repackage it, and sell it for 30 times what it normally costs to produce, and then drive you out of business while everybody buys mine and thinks yours is local. That probably didn't happen in, like, the beginning of the sausage era. Like, I don't know how. I could have researched how sausage came to be, but, you know, I don't do that kind of thing. I just think about it. And that's as good as research. Like, if I've learned anything from politics in the 21st century, it's thinking about a thing and coming up with my own internal logic is just as valuable as actually researching a thing and knowing facts about it. So that's in my mind how sausages work. Just some poor person made do, and eventually we have hot dogs and you eat them. It just was not somebody's first choice. And you carry that forward into things like milk, right? Like, the joke about milk people like to make is, who was the first person that ever looked at a cow and saw something dripping from it and was like, oh, I'm going to drink that? That's not what happened. Like, that's not how we started milking cows and goats. It wasn't just some person walking around going, I wonder what weird delicacy I could create. And look, there's a cow. I bet cows have liquid in those pouches underneath their bellies, and got down and did it. And then all of a sudden, all the rich people were drinking it. No, it was out of necessity. The first goat that was ever milked was milked because some dude in a tribe somewhere in a cave in Mesopotamia, before written history, it was a hunter-gatherer society. They were probably goat herders for some of their meat. But one day, you know, everybody's paired off in that tribe. Like, they're all sleeping in the cave and drawing on the walls. And it's like everybody's got a partner. And except for one lonely cave dude. He's all alone. And all he wanted to do that night was suck on a little boob. Right? He thought it would be nice. He thought it would be comforting. If not even full sex. Just suck on a little boobie. Get a tit in the mouth. Get a nip on the tongue, you know? And he tried He asked around. A lot of the people in the cave, they were like, no, man, not into it. I got a partner. I got 2 partners. We're like freaky like that, but you can't be in our circle. He just kept getting turned down like a little caveman incel. Like no matter how hard he tried, he could not get laid. Probably because he was spouting off some stuff about how the dinosaurs never existed. They were just mythological creatures. They didn't know about dinosaurs, probably. Cavemen and dinosaurs didn't live together no matter what you see in the Creation Museum. But he tried, right? He had some despicable views. Maybe he didn't clean his balls regularly, which was hard to do because not a lot of people clean their balls at all. So if you had the worst smelling balls in one of these clans, you had some bad smelling balls. I don't know why he couldn't get some boob that night. You could probably read Gene Aul's entire, Clan of the Cave Bear novels. What are those? The Horse People? The Children of the Earth? Whatever that series is called. Clan of the Cave Bear, Valley of the Horses, all those books. You could probably read those and get a good anthropological justification for why this guy couldn't get a tit in his mouth. But he couldn't, so he wanders out of the cave, exposing himself to all the predators. Look underneath the stars, which could fall on him at any moment. They believed shit like that back then. Probably because the aliens kept visiting, and that makes you think the sky is falling. But he's just thinking about how sad he is that he's not cuddled up in the back corner of a cave, keeping warm with some babushka. They probably didn't use that term. But, his cave girl. Or a cave dude. Like, whatever he was into. A cave non-binary person. Whatever the reason, or whatever the gender or lack of gender he was into, he did not have a nipple between his teeth. And he's lonely. And he looks at a goat, and it's like, oh, goats have nipples. No one's looking. There's no religion yet. It's not forbidden anyway. Maybe the goat will let me lick his nipple or suck some boob from the goat. So he walks over to the goat. He happens to pick a female goat just by luck. Male goats have nipples too. This could have gone a different way for him. But he hugged the goat, and it was so warm. Goat fur is nice and warm. The goat went bah, which I think sheep also do. I don't think I could recognize a sheep's bah and a goat's bah and distinguish. But he cuddled up with that goat. He laid down. He pulled the goat next to him. Found that goat's teat and just latched on with his mouth. And there he was, happy, underneath the moon, still alone, but with companionship. It wasn't a human boob, but it was a boob. And all boobs are good boobs. So he's sitting there, sucking that goat's boob, and lo and behold, this milk shoots into his mouth. He didn't know it was milk. They didn't call it milk yet. He had a feeling because he knew the babies of the clan, when they were sucking boobs, they got milk, whatever they called it then. So he figured it was probably close to the same thing because he knew baby goats sucked at these. Did he stop? No, he's already sucking a goat's tit. Why is in for a penny, in for a pound, right? So he kept going. And the goat's fine because otherwise the goat's sitting there with all this milk in it that it's just going to hurt because they ate all the baby goats. That goat has no one to give that milk to. So that cave dude just kept sucking on that goat tit and filling his mouth with that goat milk. And then the next day, he was telling somebody, he's like, hey, I learned that if you squeeze the goat's boob, milk comes out and we can drink that and get nutrition and calories to help us in our hunting and our gathering. And someone looked at him and was like, whoa, man. Why were you grabbing the goat's tits? And he didn't have an answer for that. He didn't have an answer. Luckily, someone else in the tribe was like, wait, did you say the goats are full of milk? And the conversation changed. And since that point, they milked goats. And then anything else that had teats, they're like, we could probably get milk out of that. Got a yak? Yak milk. Got a cow? Cow milk. Got an almond? Almond milk. I don't know how that worked. I don't know how we got almond milk. Like, I can't even figure that out. But everything's like that. All this stuff where you look at, like, who was the first human that ever decided that should work? It's not how it happened, man. No human decided that. Some human just had no choice. And that's how you became the first. And then history erases that act of desperation that caused you to do this in the first place. And it just becomes a thing that everybody does. And I wasn't high when I thought of this. I don't do that anymore. So it was an interesting line of thinking for me to follow to its conclusion. Yeah, it's been an interesting week. Speaking of conclusion, The Stand concluded. The last episode of Stephen King's The Stand was streamed on CBS last week. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I'm still processing. It had its good parts. It had its bad parts, like everything like that. It was 9 hours. They were clearly going to get some things wrong. There were some decisions I did not agree with, but I'm trying to be positive. I think overall, we're all watching what streams. It was probably worth it just to have something new. I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and that's one of my favorite books, so I was going to be super critical of it no matter what. I thought, I don't want to give spoilers, but I think if you read the book, it's only a spoiler if you've read the book. The whole hype about there being a new ending written just for it, it's not. It's from the book. Like, we all knew how that was going to end. There's some legitimate criticism of it. Like, if you read how Stephen King treats magical black people, and you're like, oh yeah, he does. This won't cure that notion for you. This definitely has more magical black people in it. He's learning. He's trying. He's old, man. He's trying to move into the modern way of thinking. He's just got some habits to break. That's all. But it was fine. The Expanse ended last week too. Like, all the shows. I talked last time about how I only watch a few shows. All of them are ending for the season. I got nothing. I've got nothing to keep me entertained in the streaming services. I'm just doing Star Trek Next Generation on constant repeat until something new comes out to watch. And there are things I should be watching. Like, there are things on my list. I just don't have the concentration for all of it. So it's got to be dumb. It's got to be fun, or it's got to be something I've already seen. That's it. Like, I know I need to finish Hannibal. Hannibal requires your concentration. Like, you can't just watch Hannibal. You've got to watch Hannibal. Like, you got to put your eyeballs and your brain together. But The Expanse ended last week, and I felt like that was really short. Like, I don't feel like this season did anything except get rid of the character who tweeted a bunch of stuff. R.I.P. that guy. That's not a spoiler. It was in the news. Like, you should know he's not on anymore. But that thing about, like, who's the first to do something, that really stuck with me. Because, like, I don't know. Why do we assume it's some person who just has a thought to do something? It just gradually works that way, right? Like, no one looked at an egg and said, well, that looks great. Let's try it. They ate chickens. And then they were like, well, chickens come from eggs. We could probably eat the egg. It's out of necessity. It's like necessity is a mother of invention, not curiosity. Curiosities, I guess that puts, I don't know. That's probably not true. I guess that's everything in my head. I don't know. I'm slated to get my first dose of the COVID vaccine this week. So that'll be interesting because, I mean, it can only go a couple different ways, right? One way, they're going to put a shot in me and nothing's going to happen and life's going to carry forward the way it has for a few months until I get the second shot. And that'll be 3 weeks from this week. But the other chance, I guess, is that I'm going to get all kinds of cool superpowers thanks to Bill Gates and the nanites that are in the vaccine, which I'm for. Like, if there are Borg nanites in this vaccine, fucking put them in my arm, man. That would be great. Like, self-healing. I've had a torn rotator cuff or something in my shoulder for the last 2 or 3 months that I just haven't done anything about. And if there's a way to inject me with something where some little nanorobots might find that tissue and rebuild my shoulder better and stronger than it was, I'm for it. Make it happen, man. Now, I've read the stories. I've seen the episodes of different Twilight Zones, Outer Limits, Black Mirror, whatever it was, where you get the nanites that are supposed to repair 1 or 2 problems, but then they try making you a more efficient organism. So the first time you take a bath, you grow gills because the robots automatically assume you need to be able to breathe underwater. That's a downside. That's everything has a downside. But is it really? Like, congratulations, now you can breathe underwater. That's pretty dope. Like, you'll look funny, but pretty soon everybody's going to look funny. So I'm still not afraid of the vaccine if it does that. If it gives me time travel powers, that's awesome. I don't know what I'm going to use time travel for. I've talked about it a lot. There are a lot of different options. I'm probably not going to be super altruistic with my time travel powers. I'm not going to go back and stop 9/11. For one, I know now the country doesn't care about 9/11, right? Like, only 3,000 people died during 9/11. For the longest time, we thought that was cool. Like, not cool, but like, unique. That's a better word than cool. Now we probably think that 3,000 people dying is cool because we let 500,000 die. So anyway, getting that vaccine was the stupidest fucking process. So if you're listening going, I can't believe this asshole got the vaccine. Why? Because he's fat and can't breathe and ate too many cheeseburgers and now his blood pressure might pop him like a grape. Yeah, that's exactly why. Those are the qualifying conditions. I'm not arguing with you. You should be able to get it too. I'm getting it because I can. But the whole process of getting it is stupid. If you haven't gotten it because you can't figure out how to sign up, I'm with you. Here's what I had to do. Walmart in Missouri is one of the approved vaccine distribution companies. After going on every list you can sign up for, every company you can sign up with, I put my personal medical identifying information into 1,000 different apps. Who knows what's going on with that? That's probably being used somewhere on the Chinese dark web to sneak terrorists into the country, I guess, if you watch the right news source. I don't know. Good luck using my credit and my health history for anything good. Neither of those are perfect. But Walmart is a distribution center. I had read that they only book out a week at a time, and some people were having luck securing an appointment 7 days from midnight of the day you register. If you go on their website at 11:59 p.m., enter your data, start refreshing as fast as you can, you'll snag one of those appointments. It works. I did it twice in one night to get 2 appointments. And you only have to schedule one if there's only one of you. Schedule it, and then they automatically schedule your 3-week later appointment after you get the vaccine. So there's a million different tricks people are posting for how they get it. It's shitty. You should not need to have internet access to get a vaccine. You should not need a camp on a website like you're buying Dave Chappelle tickets to get a vaccine. It should not be easier to get a PS5 than a vaccine. It's completely fucked up, and I'm on your side. And if you look at me with a vaccine and you're like, oh, well, that's bullshit, I'm way more important, you really are. I'm not arguing with you. But on the other side of that, if you're thinking about not getting the vaccine to make room for someone else, or if you're offered a vaccine and you're like, there are a million people who are way more affected at this than me, I should let them get it. Don't do that. Get the fucking vaccine. Put it in your goddamn arm. That's harsh. I didn't mean to say it. Like, just imagine I said that in a more caring way. The only way we're getting out of this is if as many people get as many shots in as many arms as we can put them. So, there's a lot less risk that you're killing someone when you go out in the world. So get it. Don't be an idiot. And I know the Catholic Church is all like, well, the new vaccine is made from stem cells from aborted fetuses. Fuck the Catholic Church. You know my feelings. I get that we'll talk about fish fries next week. I won't get into that today. But fuck them. You know what? If you get the vaccine and you feel bad because there's some aborted babies from the 70s in that vaccine, well, maybe you're a caring person who likes children. Go donate some money to a charity that feeds and clothes them. Don't just worry about whether or not they pop out of a vagina somewhere. Worry about if they have clothes today. And also get the vaccine so you don't kill any parents. Because if you kill their parents, those kids don't have parents. And now you've got to take care of them. And if there's one thing we know about conservative assholes in this country, they don't want to take care of someone else's kids. They barely want to take care of their own. That was uncalled for. I'm sure conservatives love their kids. I mean, I've never seen it or any example of it, but I'm sure it happens. Hey, you've been listening to Impolite Company. I've been your host, Chris Sear. Our theme song is written by Lyfestile and Kenautis Smith. Check out their album on Spotify, iTunes, all the places you get music. Buy it. Don't just stream it. Local artists get more money when you buy things. You can find the links in the description of this episode. Follow us on social media. Impolite STL on Twitter. Impolite STL on Facebook. Impolite STL on Instagram. That's it. It's Impolite STL. And there'll be pictures and clips from some live shows we have going on right now. Yes, that's right. Live shows. Starting this week on Tuesdays outside at 9 Mile Garden. It's warm enough to kick up some outside shows again. We'll be bringing 3 comic showcases. Not 3 showcases, but showcases with 3 comics every Tuesday night out there at 9 Mile Garden. It's a fun spot. There's links on our social media. Obviously, if you're in St. Louis, come through. Come watch some shows. Wear a mask. If you're not from St. Louis, I mean, if you're vaccinated, I guess you can travel from state to state. I really don't know the rules. No one does. Everyone has a different set of rules. So decide what you're comfortable with. Try not to kill people. Put on a mask. Come watch the show. And yeah, that's it. I think that's all the announcements I had to make. Follow me on social media. I tweet dumb shit. The other day, I tweeted, an Oedipus complex is an apartment building that fucks its mom. I like that. That's a good pun. But it's at Chris D. Sear. At Chris D. Sear. Follow me. It's fun. Why haven't I clocked off on this thing yet? Anyway, still got no gods, no masters, no catchphrases. Peace out.
I sleep at night, comfortably. Hope you're in the mood for some impolite company.